By now, we've seen examples of maintenance techniques for working with several of the most common kinds of insulating materials: calcium silicate, fiberglass, cellular rubber, and reflective insulation. You've probably noticed that in every case, the workers involved were wearing some kind of special protective clothing. When they were working with fiberglass and calcium silicate insulation, their basic protective items were goggles, filter masks, gloves, and long sleeves. There are some important reasons for wearing this gear when you're insulating. Let's take a close look at fiberglass and calcium silicate insulation and see how they affect your safety. Fiberglass insulation is made of thousands of tiny glass fibers. The fibers are sharp and easily penetrate exposed skin. Glass fibers cause severe irritation wherever they touch the skin. Fibers in the eyes can cause permanent damage to vision. Breathing glass fibers can make your nose and throat itchy and sore, and possibly cause lung problems later. If you work with fiberglass, wear your goggles and mask, and keep your skin covered to prevent contact with the insulation. Calcium silicate insulation presents a different safety hazard. It makes sense to keep any kind of dust out of your eyes and lungs. But with some kinds of calcium silicate insulation, there's an even more important reason to protect yourself. In the past, many kinds of calcium silicate contained asbestos fibers for added insulation value. Since then, asbestos has been found to cause lung cancer and contribute to other respiratory diseases. It's no longer used in insulation, but if you're going to be repairing or ripping down older insulation systems, you may be in contact with asbestos. Wherever you might be working with asbestos, use all the precautions you can to keep it out of your lungs. Dispose of scraps and used insulation properly. They should be removed in sealed plastic bags. When you're done, vacuum the floor and your clothes to prevent spreading asbestos dust around. Asbestos is one of the best reasons for wearing the right protective equipment for the job. But any time you're exposed to dust or glass fiber from insulation, you need to protect your lungs and eyes. With reflective insulation, you don't need goggles and a filter mask, but you do need gloves. Reflective insulation is usually made of sheet metal with sharp corners and edges. Whenever you handle sheet metal, you should wear gloves to protect your hands from cuts. This is especially true with reflective insulation. Since it's often custom-made for the plant, the edges and corners are not always finished as perfectly as production line products. Exercising care when handling reflective insulation can keep you from getting a nasty cut. Working around hot pipes is another occupational hazard for insulators. Be alert to the signals of heat stress. Dizziness, cramps, or nausea are all signs that your body is overheating. Drinking small amounts of water frequently while you're working helps your body cool off. Gloves are a must when working close to hot pipes. You can get a bad burn just by accidentally brushing the pipe with your bare hand. Use good sense when working in hot areas. It takes a while for your body to adjust to the heat. If you feel yourself overheating, take a break to cool off. Ladders are another hazard that insulators have to deal with. A straight or extension ladder has to be braced by a second person or tied off at the top. And don't stretch your luck by standing on the top rung. The highest you should go on any ladder is 2 rungs below the top one. Wearing a lifeline can be a good idea, especially when you're high up in the plant. A short length of cable is easily hooked around a rail, but be careful when you're close to electrical equipment. The cable should be grounded, or a non-conductive rope should be used to reduce the shock hazard. Electrical heat tracing can shock you too. Before working on heat-traced runs, make sure the tracing has been turned off and tagged out. Some of these hazards are not unique to insulation work. You could run into them on many different kinds of jobs. There are some special hazards, though, that are directly related to insulation, and they affect not only the worker on the job, but the whole plant as well. We're going to talk about two special problems: stress corrosion cracking and oil-soaked insulation. Stress corrosion cracking can be a problem with certain kinds of stainless steel. When insulation containing chlorides is in contact with these steels, a chemical reaction between the insulation and the metal weakens the steel as it's corroded. This cracks the stainless steel, causing leaks and possibly causing the shutdown of vital systems in the plant. So when you're working on a stainless steel run, only use insulation that's certified to be chloride-free. And when the insulation is off, carefully inspect the pipe for cracks and leaks. When you find a leak, look for the source. Is it water dripping from a pipeline overhead? Or is it oil, possibly from within the insulation? Oil leaks can be a special problem because sometimes the oil catches fire and smolders under the insulation. Smoldering insulation may not be noticed immediately, but when someone cuts into the insulation to repair it and see what's causing a leak, the sudden rush of fresh air to the smoldering insulation can cause a sudden flare-up, and someone could be barbecued. Whenever you remove oil-soaked insulation on hot piping, have a helper with a fire extinguisher standing by in case of a flare-up. Start by removing sections as far away from the soaked area as possible and gradually work your way closer to the soaked spot. That way you'll have plenty of warning before the insulation bursts into flames. Remembering simple safety precautions and using the correct equipment are the best ways to avoid getting hurt on the job. Your safety equipment is especially important when you're working with hazardous substances like asbestos or irritating kinds of insulation like fiberglass. Goggles, a filter mask, gloves, and long sleeves are standard gear for insulation installers. Make good safety practices a habit, and you'll be well on your way to becoming an efficient and safe insulation worker.